Hello, you're listening to Count Richard von Coudenhove Kalergi. Today is Monday, March the 29th, and here's a couple of comments since my last video. I would like to start with a quote from Rahm Emanuel, who said that you never want a serious crisis to go to waste. It is an opportunity to do things that you could not do before. Now, I noticed yesterday, checking the arrivals in Dublin Airport, there was 81 flights due to arrive. The 3 transatlantic flights between 4 and 5 in the morning, 2 from Canada, and a lot of European flights, including those from Doha. Now, an interesting video appeared with Catherine Whelan and Dee about interviewing Damien Dempsey as he was walking through the airport, and that he was asked how many people were on the aircraft, and he said only 10 people were on board. But I found it interesting that none of the passengers were checked, unlike Singapore, which has a nasal swab and temperature testing done for each passenger, and any passenger that is deemed a risk is put straight into quarantine for 14 days and not even allowed to leave the airport. But to see people wandering around in Dublin Airport was quite extraordinary. But and yet we've been told to stay at home, minimum journeys, and a 2 kilometre radius at home for exercise. Now, I've been walking every day now, and I've noticed plenty of buses going around with no passengers on board, and the rubber glove and the disposable coffee cup seems to be the litter of choice strewn around the streets, unfortunately. Now, last Saturday morning, from midnight till about 3 in the morning, there was an unusual aircraft flying around Dublin, and it was an aircraft from Flight Calibration Services, which is a UK-based company. Now, this little twin-engined aircraft was flying at roughly 1,500 feet and flew for around 4 hours. And thanks to a friend of mine, it turns out that this was over here. It wasn't actually surveillance work, but it was surveying to do with calibration of flights in and out of Dublin Airport, and it's something that is an annual thing rather than, so nothing sinister in that. Now, a friend of mine got a notification from his allotment that it is to be closed until the 19th of May, which I find an extraordinary decision, considering you would think that they would be encouraging more people to be self-sufficient rather than depending on the food chain. But there it is, all the vegetables that he had sown will now go to waste. I also noticed that in my local church had a notice up on the door saying that it was shut, so you can't even enter it to go in and light a candle. So they lost 80 cents out of me that day. So you can get your shirt dry cleaned and you can get takeaways and off license, but attending soulful matters, well, that's not allowed. So how on earth did this happen to be? And the church has now been relegated to a non-essential service. Now, in an effort to get away from all this doom and gloom, I came across a very interesting series of short videos on YouTube, which are cartoons of broadcasts made by C.S. Lewis during World War II, with the first broadcast on August the 6th, 1941. Each short episode, which has been recreated using the original script, as unfortunately none of the originals were kept and recorded, but received up to 1.5 million listeners at the time, and eventually republished in 1952 in a book called Mere Christianity. I cannot recommend this highly enough. Just on a final notice, I noticed that Senator Gerard Crockwell was in the Senate there recently talking about the emergency powers and the re-enlistment of ex-personnel in the Defence Forces, and it should be for a minimum period of 6 months and a maximum period of 3 years. So what on earth did these guys actually think is going to happen? But there you go. And I'd like to end with a quote with C.S. Lewis. There have been some who were so concerned in spreading Christianity that they never thought to give a thought to Christ. So there you go. There are a couple of comments which are my own. Thanks for listening. Good night. God bless, if I'm allowed to say that, and good luck.